Texas Christian University head football coach Gary Patterson is in hot water right now after using the N-word twice, both versions of the word, so we're clear, while talking to his student players. TCU redshirt freshman linebacker Jordan Patterson posted a statement on Twitter, and language is uncomfortable for people. I allow people to speak how they want freely. I don't usually like curse on air, but when it's a podcast, it's different from TV where you can't put up a statement and allow someone to read it. And also when you're talking about different versions of a racial slur, unfortunately, I feel like I have to read it so it's very clear for everyone listening. So people are going to be offended by that. Hopefully the fact that I'm Black, lessens that a little bit. Yeah, we'll see. So the statement on Twitter, he said his coach called him out about an Instagram post saying, "You're a fucking brat. I'll send you back to Pitt." And following with, "You've been saying niggas in the meeting room." So afterwards, Jordan says some of his teammates asked him about the conversation and they decided that while they were figuring out what to do, they were not going to practice. The coach came to talk to them about it and says to the players, "I wasn't calling him a nigger." Jordan ended his statement with, "This behavior is not okay now or ever, and there needs to be repercussions to these actions." The coach himself put out a statement after all of this broke, saying he met with some of the players about this, and he said, "I apologize for the use of a word that in any context is unacceptable. I have always encouraged our players to do better and be better, and I must live by the same standards." Chris, I'll start with you this time. Do you think it's feasible that a man who has coached young Black men for many years in an environment like this didn't know that that wasn't appropriate? Or do you think that this is about a lack of respect for those very young men? Or do you think that this is all a big, much to do about nothing?
There's a few ways I feel about this. For one, I feel like you should never use the word. Two, he said it both ways, though. He said it both ways. Like, you added the ER at the end of it all, man. It's like, that's not cool. Like, at first I had one thought, like, you're just like repeating what he said and using it as an example. And I honestly don't really feel like you should do that because that's not your place. And I don't know how old this man is, but he's a grown man and he should probably know by now that you don't. And then proceeded to add the ER later. It kind of rubs me the wrong way. It truly does. I don't know why. Maybe it just comes with some sort of like grief that we all kind of carry as Black people with that. But he shouldn't have repeated it. I understand that he was upset. I do understand that. I do appreciate him bringing it up that he shouldn't, because I think that we as Black people should be held accountable. And I do understand that we use it, but I don't know. I wouldn't be using it around my white friends, or you know what I mean? Like, I wouldn't be saying it around anybody because of things like this. Because once I say it in front of you, you're going to think that that's cool. And we're not cool like that. We're really not.
Right. Not if you want to remain friends.
Right.
Yeah. And then he took it a step further. Like, man, he was upset probably that the dude told on him maybe. And then showed his true colors later by adding the ER. Like, "Oh, I'm going to show you." Yeah, you know what I mean? That's what I feel like. He felt like, "Oh, I'm going to show you." You know what I mean? Like, you thought it was bad before?
I think that's how a lot of people feel. Madi, I think something that, like, players in general, they're always like, there's like a constant criticism that they have entitlement issues, right? This is in pro sports, and we're talking about college students here too. So I think that that's really important, that these are essentially kids. Yes, technically once you're 18, you're an adult, but we've all been 18, 19, 20, 21, and we know how childlike that is. Especially like emotionally. But I think that there is always a focus on players having entitlement issues, right? And not as much of a conversation on what happens to them, how they're treated by coaches, by fans, by society in general. And I don't know, why do you think that is?
I don't know. I don't think that this is a case of entitlement, though.
Uh-huh.
I think that this is a case of like a generational difference, and it's not just that it's being perceived in sports. I think in general, what I've seen is a really big difference in this upcoming generation and the way that they handle discrimination and disrespect. Right? I feel like I grew up in a generation where it was a lot more tolerant. They are not tolerating it at all. Like,
and they have
not,
platforms.
No, yeah, right. And that's the thing. They know that they can cancel you out. They know that they have power in numbers. They know that they can put all your stuff out there and get you out of here like this. And I don't think that that's entitlement. I think that they're just like, hey, we saw that you guys were really passive and we are not taking that route. And it can be misconstrued as being entitled, because I tell my kids that all the time. I'm like, your generation is so entitled. But I think that they're like, no, we're not doing that. We're not waiting. They're not playing the waiting game. They're like, it's now. So if you use the N word, yeah, I'm gonna call you out. Where it's like, I feel like my generation would have been like, oh, whatever. They would have kind of let it pass and they would have been upset, but they would have internalized it. I think this younger generation is just like, no, we're not doing that anymore, because we do have the platform and we can let it be known that we're not accepting it.
And you know what I meant by like entitlement, the criticism, which I don't think is fair, is always that it's not, these like young men and women aren't treated as if they are human beings who deserve to always be treated like human beings, regardless of what they've achieved, regardless of how much you like sports, or you know what I mean, where you want them to go or be, that these are human beings who have their own agency, who deserve their own agency, and deserve to be treated as such.
Yeah, and deserve to be respected. And anybody who uses the N word so freely, especially with the ER, it really, I mean, come on, I've never said it with the, like, never, not even, I've read books and I cringe just seeing it written out. So for you to even say it, like vocalize it, that means that you've said it before and you felt very comfortable.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, also too, if somebody says that they're uncomfortable, whether it's the N-word or not, or here's my thing, like there's been many times just with racial things and you bring it up to somebody's attention and they're like, well, I didn't mean it that way, or that's not what I meant, I was just or it's always like a combative argument instead of being like, I'm sorry I hurt your feelings.
Yeah, like let me treat you how you've asked to be treated. Yeah.
Right.
And it's simple. People don't curse in church. They don't cuss in front of their grandmas. Like everyone knows how to shift their behavior out of respect.
Why are you upset?
Right.